FCS CheckDown. Nathan McCreary, Coach Ron Jackson. Missing Brandon tonight. He's got some stuff going on, and we gotta have some grace. He's a young family, and so he is helping his wife out. We're super excited that he's able to do that, and we're going to press on without him. Coach Jackson, we are going to get into a conference preview for the very first time. I do want to thank New Haven Chargers head coach Mark Powell. I got a chance to interview him earlier today. That is over at YouTube, so please go check that out. It's also going to be uploaded to Spotify later today. Like and subscribe on YouTube, and give us a review on Spotify if you like the interviews and all that good stuff. Okay, Coach, we're just a few weeks away from the kickoff for college football, week 0, right? And I can tell you this, I'm fired up about it. I don't know about you. In the MVFC, the Missouri Valley Football Conference, one of the better football conferences in the FCS. It's got the national champion in it. There's a lot of changes, and I'm excited to start talking about it. What say you? Hang on a second. I muted you, and I forgot to. Okay. This is a habit of mine. You're up, Coach.
Man, I appreciate that. Now, you know what? I've been muted by much better, so it ain't that big of a deal, my guy. I'm glad we're getting. I'm glad we're getting started. Everybody's out in teams are still in fall camp and getting amped up. You can tell by their media departments that they're videoing all their practices.
Oh, yeah.
Having a lot of fun. So, man, I can't wait. And I think the Missouri Valley Conference is going to be as tough this year as they've been in the past.
Well, I think so too. And let's go ahead and start our preview of this Missouri Valley Conference. We're going to go team by team, talk a little bit about them, and then we're going to make a prediction at the end of the show, Coach. And we're going to start with the Murray State Racers. Murray, Kentucky. Jody Wright is in his first year as the head coach there. They finished 3-9 in 2024, 1-7 in the MVFC. Coach Jackson, scoring-wise, this team was bad. 19.8 points per game. Passing offense under 200 yards. Rushing offense about 140 yards. They allowed over a sack and a half per game. They lost 26 turnovers on offense. On defense, they were worse, Coach. They were worse. 46.7 points allowed is the dead last in the FCS. Their passing offense was 121st. Rushing defense was over, allowing 223 yards per game. Coach, this was not a good football team, and they got a lot of work to do, and I don't think it's unfair to say that you can't really expect all that much here, Coach, can you? I mean, Missouri State Racers, Coach Jackson, beautiful country.
Yeah, man, it is a beautiful country. Now, I will tell you this. If you've never been there, there ain't but 2 ways to get there, and there's one of them encapsulate a bridge, and every now and then that bridge will be out, and you just got to go back, take another hour and a half, and get around the other way. So, and I say this, and there's no real way to sugarcoat it. Murray State wasn't a very good team when they were in the Ohio Valley Conference. Then they moved to the best FCS conference that's out there. So, yeah. I think they expected to struggle. I know I expected them to struggle. Now, to their defense, they've recruited a little bit better, and they've got a couple of transfer portal has helped them again. Yeah. I don't know that it's going to translate into any more conference wins, but I do hope it translates into a little more competitiveness for them, because not only did they give up a lot of points, I mean, they lost a lot of games pretty bad. So yeah. I don't really look for them to win much more, but I do expect them to be a little more competitive.
They bring in Jody Wright. He brings good championship experience from Alabama and South Carolina, Mississippi State, UAB. He's got a great reputation as a recruiter, and that's where it kind of begins, and bringing these young minds and athletes into your program. He has the largest signing class in school history, Coach. 67 newcomers, including 48 freshmen. Oh, he's a glutton for punishment. Yeah. Freshmen, you can't live with him. You can't shoot him.
They'll be good here in a couple of years now.
Yeah, so he's doing it the right way, is what I was going to say. He's bringing in young talent. He's got some transfers, obviously, from some FBS-type talent. The crown jewel of the class is Caleb Bailey, a 3-star quarterback out of North Shore High School in Houston. He becomes the highest-rated quarterback recruit in program history. It's going to be a rebuilding year for them, but it just starts with a few pieces. I think Jody Wright's a great hire, good recruiting. Now you got to keep them, right? Because we're seeing coaches bounce around the FCS. But start with recruiting and those freshmen. And I like the idea of 67 newcomers, 48 freshmen, and you're really clean slate. Let's get after it.
Yeah, and that's really the only way to do it, and it's the only way to do it and sustain it in that particular conference. You're not going to bring in 50 transfers every year and try and compete with them. You're going to have to build with, your high school talent, and that should work in Murray State's favor a little bit because you've got a little higher caliber of high school athlete that's kind of, maybe getting left behind now that with the NIL and things that have changed in college ball now. So, like I said, the thing that I am impressed with is the school, the administration. I think they're very patient in the rebuilding process, and I think they are rebuilding for sustained success whenever it happens, but it ain't gonna happen no time soon.
Well, and like you said, the FCS is better when Murray State is a good football team and winning games. This is a legendary team that has had some success and done a good job, and you obviously want to see those teams kind of an underdog. Everyone loves an underdog. You want to see those success stories of picking yourself up by the bootstraps and really building your program. All right, Murray State's got an uphill battle. Next team we're going to turn our focus to is Northern Iowa Panthers coach. This is another first-year head coach. Todd Stepsis has been hired. Northern Iowa finished 3-9 in 2024 and 1-7 in the MVFC. Offensively, not good. They had 19.8 points per game, 185 passing yards on offense, 144 rushing yards. Defense, they allowed 33 points per game. That's way too many. It's 102nd in the nation. And then passing defense, coach, this is bad. 240 yards allowed per game, rushing allowing 181 yards per game. They only had 5 turnovers gained on defense, and that is dead last in the FCS, coach. UNI, they've got some work to do as well. And this is a history program that's done some really good things in the past, and kind of want to see them turn it around. And injuries and coaching instability and all that kind of stuff really affected them last year.
Yeah, and I don't mind telling you, history's not really going to make any blocks on Saturday, so that's not going to help them too terribly much. They're going to have to, and again, this is just my opinion, they need to really concentrate in the trenches. You're out there in Iowa, it's a little cold out there. They really need to concentrate in the trenches. I would say get back to a little more ground and pound game, try and keep some games a little bit closer, and then go out and find their particular offense. But it's going to be tough sledding for them because just kind of what I've looked at they brought in, I just don't think it's enough.
Well, exactly what you said is Todd Stepsis takes over, and he's brought in offensive coordinator Nate Thompson and defensive coordinator Al Smith. The Panthers, they're looking to aim kind of an up-tempo type offense, mix in some experience from the talent from the transfer portal with their young freshman quarterback Matthew Sheckelman and running back Ty Edwards. They both return. Edwards had over 1,000 yards rushing last year. They also have a veteran wide receiver group coach, all MVFC tight end Lane Pryor. Watch out for him. I love tight ends. And also, that sounded bad, I love the position. Well, never mind. I like big wide receivers that can get down the field, and I think Lane Pryor's one to watch there in the MVFC and the FCS. Offensive lineman Keenan Kammerling, he's going to lead the line in has got a great upside to him, and he's going to be a key piece. Defensively, UNI does return proven playmakers like linebacker Tucker Langenberg and safety Jonathan Cabral-Martin, cornerback Fletcher Marshall. An influx of transfers is going to have a hopefully positive influence on them and fortify that front seven. While challenges remain, the foundation for a rebound and this new coach, it begins there with that coaching staff and, like you said, maybe in the trenches and developing something up front. Up tempo, keep it on the ground, and really ground and pound, and maybe you pick up a win or two there in the conference, Coach.
Yeah, they could. I mean, I don't expect them to finish in the top 3 or 4, but they're going to be competitive. I think they're a little further along than where Murray State is. I don't think they're quite where Southern Illinois is or anything like that, but they'll be competitive, and they're tough at home too.
And that matters. Got to protect the home turf. So, but it will be an uphill battle. As we continue to talk about the MVFC, Coach, we'll get to a point where you see this gap between the top 3 and 4 and the rest. It's significant, that's we'll see with some of these programs saying they're going to, add more scholarships and other programs saying they aren't. You make it more of a level playing field. But in conference, usually, it looks like it's going to be the conferences are going to dictate how many scholarships they're going to allow those teams to use. So in conference, it might not make that much of a difference. So we'll see. All right, up next, a little bit of a big-time disappointing season. North Dakota Fighting Hawks out of Grand Forks, North Dakota. Coach, 4-8. In 2024, 3-5 in the MVFC. They've brought in a new head coach. See a cycle here. Eric Schmidt takes over as Bob Nielsen is retiring and going to be in the administrative offices there for North Dakota. Offensively, the Fighting Hawks, not bad. Scored 30.8 points per game, which is good enough for 26th in the nation, 5th there in the conference. Their passing offense, 173 yards per game, rushing 149, sacks allowed, almost 2 sacks per game. That's a problem, right? You got to keep your quarterback upright. They did have 13 turnovers lost as an offensive group as well. Defensively, here's your problem. You score 30.8 points per game. You give up 30.9 points per game. That 1/10 of a difference apparently tailspins your whole season. They were 92nd in the nation in scoring defense. Passing defense, they allowed 198 yards per game. And rushing defense was bad, Coach. 187 yards on the ground allowed by this Fighting Hawks defense. That's unusual. Usually a very stout defense. That was 102nd in the nation. They had only 1.6 sacks per game. They did gain 16 turnovers on the season, but it just was not enough for them to get over a pretty tough schedule. And the Fighting Hawks, 3-8, they're in the bottom there of the MVFC. This is a team that I think that can jump up into that top tier if they have a good season under first-year head coach. It might be a little bit of an uphill, high expectation, but I do believe, North Dakota's has got this great history there, and it wasn't that long ago they were beating North Dakota State, in the regular season. So, Fighting Hawks, what do you think?
When they was beating North Dakota State, they had a running back, Otis Way, I believe was his guy's name, and they were playing pretty good defense, and that's what it takes in that conference. More to your point a second ago when you was talking about the upper echelon and the bottom part of the conference. The Missouri Valley is really eclipsed into that. So I think North Dakota is probably the top of the second half of the conference. Now they've got they got players and they've got a decent football budget. I do like the new coaching hire, so I expect them to kind of challenge. But to me, they're still going to be that 4th, 5th, maybe even 6th team in the MVC.
Yeah, I agree, and I have to correct something. It was not Bob Nielsen. It was Bubba Schweikert, the former coach that has retired, and so my apologies there. Don't send emails to Brandon. It's a former assistant head coach that they're bringing in. Eric Schmidt came from South Dakota State. Defensive coordinator, defensive-minded coach. He's going to have a quarterback in Sam Romfo, who returns. Had a great year, 2,000 yards passing, 18 touchdowns, only had 8 interceptions. He's going to be pushed, though. Transfer quarterback Javance Tupata Johnson, something like that. 6'4", 220 pounds. He played at San Diego State for the team that Eric Schmidt was a assistant coach for. He's going to compete for some snaps, so that's going to be an interesting camp battle there this summer. And then the 2024 weakness, rush defense, as I mentioned, they responded by adding 7 linebackers, including veteran linebacker Michael Devereaux from Old Dominion. So they've kind of picked up some muscle and some size there. Defensive line, Tyler Henry comes over from Sacramento State. He was brought in to strengthen that front, and a new era begins in Grand Forks. They're going to have to fill some glaring holes there, Coach, on the defense. And like you said, it's not impossible, but it's probably an uphill battle. You're going to be middle or bottom tier of that MVFC. What you think?
Well, I'm gonna go in and make a prediction for these guys. I've got them on the outside looking in as far as the playoffs is concerned, but I think they're going to cost somebody in their conference a playoff spot. You don't want to look at your scheduled game 7, 8, 9 somewhere in there, and you're on the bubble and North Dakota's coming to your place or you're going to their place.
Yeah, and it's a tough place to play. Absolutely. Good call, Coach. All right. Let's go into the forest and talk about some sycamores, yeah? Indiana State, Terre Haute, Ohio is where these, or Terre Haute, Indiana, that is a mistake. Terre Haute, Indiana is where this is located. 4-8 in 2024, 3-5 in the conference. Kurt Malloy, he's one of those coaches, finally has got some stability there in the MVFCs in his 9th season, but the scoring offense was not good, only 20 points per game. Passing offense, 111th in the nation. Rushing offense, about middle of the table, 149 yards, 150 yards per game. Sacks allowed, this was bad. 2.75 sacks per game. That's 101st in the nation. And turnovers lost, you had 9, which is good, right? They didn't turn the ball over that much. They wanted to keep the ball on the ground for the most part. As far as defense-wise, they gave up way too many points, 31-plus points per game. Passing defense, well, gave up 250 yards almost per game and rushing 170 yards on the ground. They had 2.08 sacks on the defensive side, which is, again, middle of the table, 6th in the conference, and they gained 12 turnovers. But, and I think Indiana State, they're in Terre Haute, not Indiana, Terre Haute, Indiana, not Ohio. Sorry about that. I think that this is another program that's kind of on the cusp of moving up the table, but they just sometimes it's just a narrow loss here and there, and they drop there in the conference. Any thoughts on the Sycamores before we get a little deeper in them?
Again, it's another tough place to play. One thing that they typically have is they're pretty good in the trenches. They've normally got pretty good size on the offensive line. They've normally got pretty good athleticism and size on the defensive line. And they've kind of been like the stock market the last 6-7 years. They hot one year and then they, bottom out a little bit. So what I'd like to see is a little consistency from them. And again, when you got a coach that's coming back for he's in his 9th year, that culture's already there, the system's already there. They ought to be in a spot to move up. They're one of those teams that I normally have in the lower part of the MVC, and I think that they can compete in the upper part. I wouldn't be surprised to see them in North Dakota exchange places a little bit.
Okay, yeah, I think it's. Listen, they had narrow losses to Houston Christian. It's a bad loss, but it's a loss, no matter the way you cut it. Youngstown State, they were close, couldn't finish. Lost to UNI, close, couldn't finish. It's a problem when you can't finish games strong and win some of those fourth quarter type comeback games or hold on to a lead. Coach Mallory returns again for that 9th season. He's overhauled his coaching staff, hiring John Bear, a new offensive coordinator from Bucknell, and David Ellison, the defensive coordinator who spent time at Purdue. The defense was a significant weakness, as we mentioned, and bringing in a coaching staff kind of is like, okay, let's reshuffle the cards here, reshuffle the deck, and see what we can find. One of the top additions is safety Kamal Clark. Coach, I don't know if you remember, we talked about this young man when he was at Central Connecticut State last year. He came out of nowhere. He's the 2024 NEC Defensive Player of the Year, and he's going to be joining Zachary Droughty, who came in from UConn, who provides size and depth. He's let's see, where am I? Okay, yeah, wide receiver Zach Droughty is going to be big on the offense with a quarterback like Elijah Owens that we talked about last year. He returns after that freshman campaign where he competed 69% of his passes with 12 touchdowns, leading the team in rushing as well. Indiana State's got a long road like some of these other teams, Coach, but those building blocks that you talked about and we've mentioned already, they're there for Indiana State. And I don't think that's a bad prediction that they could overtake North Dakota.
Well, I think their schedule is kind of friendly to them this year. And, like I said, they're the team that I just think they're on the cusp of things. They, if they can get that defense right, which I can't imagine Coach Ellison's not going to do that, but if they can get that defense right and start holding some people, they got a chance on offense. The quarterback is good.
Yes, very good and young.
Quarterback is good. He's young. If they can get some things, they would be my sleeper for the MVFC this year.
All right. So we're going to move on to Youngstown State Penguins. They are in Ohio. They're in Youngstown, Ohio. Coached Doug Phillips in his 16th season. 4-8 last year for Coach Phillips and the Penguins. 3-5 in the MVFC offensively. They were middle of the table, 27 points plus per game. Passing offense, 89th in the nation. Rushing offense was good, 201.8 rushing offense yards per game. Third in the conference, 13th in the nation. They had 18 turnovers lost, which derailed a lot of their offense, and that is way too many. Defensively, they allowed way too many points on the board. 35.8 points on the board. That was 111th in the nation and 10th in the conference. A lot of the passing defense was non-existent. 208 yards per game. That was 47th in the nation, 5th in the conference, and they allowed nearly 200 yards on the ground. And they had only 3 interceptions last year, Coach, in the MVFC, and that's not enough when you're trying to get an extra possession here and there. And they remind me of my Buccaneers, who could not find a interception last year. But Youngstown State Penguins, this is another team. You got Doug Phillips as the head coach. Well-liked. A lot of people say he's an excellent head coach there for the Penguins. Does a lot of great things, and the Penguins are a storied program, obviously, FCS champions at one point. What's going to take for them to kind of get back on and be competitive here in this MVFC?
I'm not going to sugarcoat it because we talked about Coach Phillips a lot on this show.
Yeah.
Dude, I love Coach Phillips. He's one of my favorite guys. He come from Cincinnati, and he really took a Youngstown program that was struggling pretty bad when he got there. And the disappointing thing is he's gotten better and better every year. And last year was in his 5th year. You really expected the team to take a couple of steps forward, and they took a couple of steps backwards. What that kind of tells me, just experience-wise, is maybe we was predicting their success a year too early.
Okay.
They do have their roster's pretty good right now. They're a tough place to play at. They've got decent support from their students, and they get pretty decent crowds when you play. They got a fantastic stadium. And look, a lot of Youngstown State guys been successful. John Carter back in the 80s is one that I remember. Matter of fact, John's nephew Dwayne is playing for the Buffalo Bills right now. They got a lot. It's a good, hardworking team. I think we were just, I think the expectations last year well deserved, but maybe they're going to arrive a year late. So I again, Youngstown State's somebody you don't want on your roster, on your schedule late in the season.
Yeah, they've got a dual threat quarterback there in Bo Brungard. He returns after that breakout 2024 season. He threw 2,100 plus yards per game, 12 touchdowns. He rushed for nearly 1,000 yards and 16 scores. Wide receiver Max Tomczak, a preseason all MVFC selection, leads the receiving corps and looks to be one of the most productive wide receivers there in the MVFC. They added critical talent via the portal as well. Running back TC Caffey comes from Ohio State. Now, listen, sometimes these players are walk-ons on these big FBS teams, but they have high hopes for TC Caffey, and wide receiver Kai Wilson and Mike Solomon are being brought in to solidify that wide receiving core, and it could be a good add for them. Defensive line, Parker Jacobs, and offensive lineman Isaac Perkins, as well as defensive back Jeremiah Piper and defensive tackle Colin Vaughn were added through the portal. They lost key veterans there on defense, Coach, but their defense wasn't that great, so they're kind of retooling it, and that probably isn't a bad thing for Coach Phillips and Youngstown State, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't believe so. Again, offensively is where where they've made the most strides. Defensively, yeah, they got to put it together, but literally, they didn't lose what I would consider a ton of talent. Most of their returners are your productive guys.
Right.
I literally think it's just a case that, look, it's the same band. If you loved Knee Deep when Parliament was singing it, you're gonna like Knee Deep when Funkadelic's singing it too. It's the same guy, just a different banner. I'd look for Youngstown State. I'd be shocked if they don't rebound and possibly even challenge this year. I think that I think Youngstown State's is a playoff team.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
All right.
I think
like
Youngstown
it.
State's a playoff team. I think
like
it may come down to that Youngstown State North Dakota game, and literally winners in, losers out.
Wow, that'd be great. Gotta love the drama. All right, let's go ahead and look at the Salukis. Offensively, they scored 4 points per game. Offensive passing was pretty good. They had 230 yards per game, 140 yards on the ground. Plus, they lost 16 turnovers, which was a lot. Defensively, not good enough. 30.6 points per game. They had allowed too many sacks. I'm sorry, they had the defense. Yeah, the defense didn't get enough sacks, and they had 16 turnovers gained, which gave some extra possessions. Nick Hill in his 10th season there in Carbondale, Illinois, they were at 5-7 in 2024, 2-6 in the conference. The Salukis are a team that we kind of feel like they were on the cusp for a little while, and now it's just their defense has been too porous. Their offense hasn't been efficient, and that's not a Nick Hill type coach team.
Yeah, it's rebuilding time in sock puppet land, and they don't get me wrong, they've got the facilities and they've got the coach to rebuild. I like Nick Hill too. He's a quarterback, and I think he had a brief shot in the NFL, maybe with the Packers or something back in the day. So I expect their offense to always be pretty good. Defense has been, just kind of up and down. And when they're rebuilding right now, they're a team that, again, a couple of years ago they was challenging for second place,
right.
And now they slipped down a little bit. And I really didn't see that they've added to terribly much on defense. So I kind of expect them to, maybe middle of the pack, maybe slide down a little bit too, but. Nick's got he's got his work cut out on defense.
He does. They lost. They are just returning 5 contributors from a season ago, so he's going to be reshaping that whole unit. They got linebacker Colin Bonnick is a proven talent coming off from an injury, and hopefully he'll be healthy and add to that defense. The front seven and secondary will require some major competition during these camps to find out who is going to step into those gaps. The run game remains a concern for Salukis. They didn't really do anything offensively, but wide receiver Vincent Davis III comes in from Charleston Southern. He returns as a potential game breaker if he can recapture this 2023 form. And 3 returning starters anchor the offensive line. They add Jacob Katoska from Coastal Carolina, something like that.
Maybe.
And yeah, something like that. And then healthy DJ Williams. And we saw that young man really get his career started off like a firecracker. And then a season-ending hand injury was, obviously a downfall for this Salukis offense. He's going to be back. He's young. He's untested after that injury, and they have a young quarterback room. So if he's not healthy, there's going to be big questions around the Salukis in 2025, no doubt about it. All right, so this is where you start to see some separation, right? And one of the separations that is off as how efficient the offense can be. And we're going to start with South Dakota, the Coyotes, out of Vermilion, South Dakota. Here's their look at what they're doing. They have a new head coach, Travis Johansson, in his first year. 11-3 coach last year, 2024. 7-1 in the MVFC. They lost to Montana State in the FCS semifinals. Offensively, they were good. 35.8 points per game, good enough for 7th in the nation. Passing offense, 45th in the nation. Rushing offense, 6th in the nation with 215-plus yards per game. They didn't allow sacks. They protected their quarterback, only allowing 0.93 sacks per game, which is 9th in the nation. Defensively, again, good. The Coyotes, 7th in the nation with 17.6 scoring defense. They only allowed 17.6 points per game. Passing defense could improve. They averaged about 200 yards per game, but a stout rushing defense, 116 yards on the ground per game, was 2nd in the MVFC, 17th in the country. And this team turned 14 interceptions into extra possessions for their offense. And South Dakota Coyotes, coach, this is a team, tell you, it's a first-year coach taking over a program that has had a lot of successes that's going to need that throttle up to get past the South Dakota State, North Dakota State. What you say?
Yeah, South Dakota was picked on a lot years past, and now they've gotten their talent up. They kind of like George and Wheezy. They've moved on up to the east side, and they're ready to stay. I mean, yeah. I think they've taken in 10, 15 FBS transfers just to solidify a group that's already pretty solid. So they want to take that next step up. I don't see them really missing a beat, even though it's a first-year coach. I mean, there's a lot of familiarity there. There's a culture's already there. The guys are already there. The facilities are already there. Things are already in place for them to be successful. Yeah. I can't imagine they're going to take, you know what? If you think they take a step back, well, they take a step back from 3rd in the country to 4th in the country.
Right.
Literally, they're going to be there. They'll be at the party. They'll be waiting on somebody else.
Well, they return their offensive juggernauts in Aiden Bauman and running back Charles Pierre Jr. They're going to be two players that headline that offense, aggressively attacking the transfer portal to bring in those 15 FBS transfers like you had mentioned. The offense added major size and skill with 6'6" Dallas Holmes from Lafayette and 6'7" Jackson Accardi. South Dakota gained big-time weapon and 4-star running back Jalen Anderson, a transfer from West Virginia, while explosive kickoff returner and wide receiver Keandre Jones-Logan returns to stretch the defenses and special teams. So that should be enough talent to build on. South Dakota is going to be a team to be reckoned with. Their line of scrimmage could be a concern, Coach. I know you talk about the trenches. Several starters have left. Travis Johansson's going to have to reshape that big line, but there's tends to be enough size and talent in that region to bring in. And they have added some impact players. Defensive end Kalen Presser from Arkansas State, defensive lineman Caden Crawford, and defensive lineman Jeff Bowie. They both transferred in from Iowa, while the secondary brings in experience of defensive back Ashton Payne from Washington State and defensive back DJ Kennard from Michigan State. Revamped offense with some key pieces in place. I think South Dakota's ready to take that next step, Coach Jackson.
Yeah, I'm on call. South Dakota might have the biggest line in the MVC. Now, don't get me wrong; they may not be as experienced or things like that, but as far as pound to pound, height to all that, they may have the biggest line. They would be what I would consider double stripers. And once they get on the same page, it'll take a little while, but I expect them to go a little more run heavy. If they go run heavy, that helps their defense a little bit. And, they're going to win a lot of games 24-21, 24-17, 21. Yeah. So, in that area. So, again, I'm not they're not the team in the MVC that I'm worried about.
No. Absolutely not. They do open up against Iowa State, which is going to be one of those games those FBS, FCS people like to circle and see if they can knock off the Cyclones and see what happens. Just kind of looking at their schedule right now. They play, the tail end of their schedule is loaded with North Dakota, South Dakota State on November 8th. And they play North Dakota State September 27th. So you got some games to circle there for South Dakota. I think they're going to make some noise there in the MVFC. All right, a team that was kind of really fun to watch last year, the Illinois State Redbirds, coach out of Normal, Illinois, 10-4 last year, 6-2 in the MVFC. Head coach Brock Spack in his 18th season. This is a team, an offense that had 26 points per game. Through the air, they had 238 yards per game. Good enough for 27th in the nation, coach, and second there in the MVFC. Rushing 160 yards per game. Sacks allowed, they had 1.50 sacks allowed, which is 31st in the nation and 4th in the conference. Defensive-wise, 24.9 points per game. And passing defense, 266 yards of passing allowed, 115th in the nation, 10th in the MVFC, an area that they want to improve upon. They also turned 14 interceptions into extra possessions for the offense, which led the conference, Coach Jackson. The Illinois State Redbirds were a surprise, and they were a fun team to watch last year. They obviously had a impactful season. They're finishing in that top tier of the MVFC, challenging teams. They had some good wins. Can they do it again?
Yes, they sure can. They are the epitome of their coach's name, SPAC. They're just like blocks.
Yeah.
They
like a little spackle?
That's
all
it.
Right.
Just
I'm tracking.
If you hear somebody say, "Hey, I'm Coach SPAC," what do you expect? He's big dude, got a white shirt on.
Yeah, that whole nanu thing right there.
Yeah, last year they were a playoff team.
Supposed
to host a playoff team, and I think they had their high school championship games there or something like that. Kind of got, but they got some momentum. They're another team that I think moves up in the upper echelon of the MVC, and I think they're there to stay too. They got good facilities. They got good stability. They got They're another team. I think. I don't think they're on the level of South Dakota, South Dakota State, South Dakota, or North Dakota. But
right,
I think they're a solid number. I think they're a solid 4 in the MVC.
Yeah, and Coach, one of the things that you'll see in their season from 2024, good season, 10-4, 6-2 in the MVFC, that they were beaten soundly by UC Davis in the playoffs, 42-10. And despite the impressive win over North Dakota and SEMO, they struggle against the top-tier teams, including a very lopsided loss against NDSU and then playoffs. So this is where you're like the rungs on the ladder run out, and you got to find a way to be creative and get up that ladder. And that's where Illinois State is, in my opinion, mentioned that they average 26 points per game, over 400 yards per offense, per contest rather. And Tommy Rittenhouse, he's going to return after a good strong season, 66.4 points, 64% passing, over 2,800 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He'll be joined by standout running back Winkers Wright, another kind of name we got introduced to last year. 1,123 yards on the ground, 11 touchdowns, and veteran wide receiver Daniel Sobkowitz. Oh, gosh. Sobkowitz. He's back. He enters his final season ranking. Yeah. He enters the final season ranking among ISU's all-time leaders in reception yards and touchdowns. Both Wright and Sabi have been named to the Walter Payton Award watch list. The offensive line returns key starters Landon Woodard and Jake Pope. Transfer tight end Caleb Schmitz, a 3-star out of Cincinnati, is expected to contribute to the offense, as we should be fun to watch. Defensively, All-American linebacker Ty Niekamp returns after leading the MVS. I can't believe he wasn't plucked, but his dad is on the coaching staff. So his dad was probably like, listen, son. But Niekamp is back. He returns after leading the MVFC with 112 tackles and 4 interceptions, while defensive line brings back experienced Jake Anderson, Nick Kessler, and Reese Edwards. And the secondary lacks proven depth, but they have transfer Travell Mullen is a 4-star out of James Madison, and Shadwell Nkuba, Nkuba the second, out of Louisiana, aims to fill that void. Brocksbach again enters that 17th season as the head coach. Listen, I'm high on Illinois State. I think that they have brought in enough talent, I think, to kind of stay in that top tier, Coach. We will have to see how it goes for Illinois State. I don't know that they could overtake a South Dakota, the Yotes, but you never know.
Here's what I like about them. They didn't do, from everything I looked at, they didn't lose a whole lot. You don't hear many transfers out of Illinois State, and again, they're very well coached.
Yeah,
they're very well put together. They, it is you are not sending a knife to a gunfight with them.
Right. And it's nice to finally get to that tier of football and the MVFC where you're like, okay, they can compete, because honestly, like I said, you have this big gap, and if you look at the points for and the points against, and for a lot of these teams, they're not even close to touching that top tier of the MVFC, which we're going to get to here shortly. Oops-a-daisy. All right, up next, Coach Jackson. We've got South Dakota State Jackrabbits. Here they are. South Dakota State Jackrabbits, Brookings, South Dakota, finished 12-3, 7-1, which was second in the MVFC. Oops, I put the wrong head coach's name up there. That's all right. The head coach is a new head coach. It is Dan Jackson, the head coach there for South Dakota State. Take a look at their offense, 36 points per game plus, fourth in the nation, second in the conference. Passing offense, 197, but that was not where their bread and butter was. It was that rushing offense, Coach. 236.1 yards per game, third in the nation, first in the MVFC. Defensively, they only allowed 13.9 points per game, Coach Jackson. That was first in the nation, obviously first in the country as well. And their rushing defense, Coach, only allowed 93.2 points yards per game. This was a very, very stout defense and a very good run game for South Dakota State. Their head coach bounced on to a new career, and now they've got Dan Jackson at the helm. How big of a change is it when a coach leaves like that on a team like South Dakota State that, again, they've been on the cusp. I was North Dakota State, and then South Dakota State. They come in, they make a big noise, national championship. That you lose their quarterback, Gronowski. He's now at Iowa. New coach takes over. Is this a tailspin year, a rebuild year for South Dakota State, Coach?
Most of the times when a team loses their quarterback, loses their coach, it calls for some rebuilding because things have to change. It's a different voice in the locker room. You might go about things differently, but in this case, it's kind of like Proud Mary. I believe they're just going to keep on rolling. They're at the point in their of their team that they just replace. They're a
Yeah.
team that just simply
Reload.
reloads.
Yeah.
And, when as they reload, it's going to be tough on everybody else. But don't get me wrong, losing your quarterback is big. So maybe they don't go undefeated during the regular season.
What?
Maybe they lose a game or two. But by the time the playoffs roll around, that's when you're going to hear Ike Turner with the deep voice talk about rolling. I mean, literally.
And
I expect them to be fine.
Well, they need to get rolling early, and under Coach Jackson, he's going to bring in that defensive minded. He was the Idaho defensive coordinator, if you recall, but he takes over one of the most consistent and most coveted jobs in the country there at SDSU. They were hit hard by that transfer portal, as we mentioned. Rogers not in the transfer portal, but Coach Jimmy Rogers is off. 15 players are lost to that transfer portal, including Mark Gronowski, Angel Johnson, Griffin Wild, Tucker Large. To reload, they welcome 22 new players, including 8 FBS transfers. Offensive spotlights are going to shift to quarterback Chase Mason. He has limited experience, but he was with SDSU and then left, and now he's back. And so they think that he understands the culture there. They add explosive players in Julius Luffridge, the two-time All-Patriot League selection out of Fordham. We've called his name a ton. It'd be interesting to see how he does there in the MVFC, and Nate White out of Wisconsin. So, and then on the defense, they were tough on defense, and they lost a lot of pieces. So, like you said, they've got to reload. Well, defensively, Brian Bergstrom returns as the coordinator. He maintains that continuity for SDSU, which is a good thing. He adds defensive back Kobe Bretz from Nebraska, Jackson Powers from Minnesota, linebacker Graham Eben from Iowa. Those are big-name schools expected to step into the leadership roles and have an impact very quickly. Despite the SDSU loss in depth, their culture remains a national contender, and all the preseason rankings show that they're going to be there in the top to start the season. So South Dakota State is back. Different look, Coach, but I think that they're going to be a team that I think people are going to be interested, and it'll be fun to watch the new names stepping up and doing what South Dakota State does.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams will walk in there thinking that they have a chance.
Yeah, I agree. Sip of water for the old goozle. Let's get on to the final team here in the MVFC, and it is the North Dakota State University Bison. Fargo, North Dakota, they are your national champion, 14-2, 7-1 in the conference. Put up 38.1 points per game. Offense, passing-wise, 224 yards per game, 193 rushing yards per game. They allowed just 1.25 sacks per game, which is 23rd in the country. They only lost, Coach, get this, they only lost 6 turnovers on offense. 6. The whole year. That's good enough for the first in the nation. Defensively, they allowed 18.6 points per game. Passing-wise, 38th in the nation with 196 yards. Rushing defense, 20th in the nation, 193 yards. Sacks per game, 52. So they were after the quarterback a good bit. And then, of course, those turnovers, 25 turnovers game, limiting those offensive turnovers, Coach. They're your national champion. And let me tell you, Coach Polasek, entering his second season, got a big smile on his face. This NDSU team is going to be very, very tough to beat.
Yeah, while I'm on my musical kick tonight, I like I said, I think South Dakota State might be Proud Mary, but I believe North Dakota State is Crazy Train. It's going to be another year now, and I'll tell you, if you want a chance at them in the tournament, you better hope they go undefeated during the regular season.
Yeah.
If they happen to slip up and lose one, and you better hope they don't lose to South Dakota State.
Oh boy.
If they do that, once them training wheels get to rolling, dude, they're gonna smoke and steamroll everybody.
Yeah.
You know, I like the coaching change, quite honestly. I like I like what they do on defense. That they're I don't think they're quite as big up front as they have been in the past, but I think they're a little more athletic up front than they have been in the past. And quite honestly, what are you going to do with the Lance kid at wide receiver?
Yeah.
He's in my opinion, he's one of the best. He's one of the best players that I've seen in the FCS in a long time, and there've been some good ones. That kid is fantastic. It's tough to cover. It's tough to score. I see him repeating.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I don't see why. I don't think that there's a of note like say, hey, this is the change. Cam Miller is gone. When you lose your starting quarterback, and he was drafted by the Las Vegas Raiders in the 6th round, I didn't get a chance to see if he actually played in any preseason. But
Nathan, if I'm quarterback, if I've got a couple of years of eligibility left, just in case Coach hears this and is looking for somebody that can throw that smoke screen, I'm probably going to be at least honorable mention all conference. I might even get a unrestricted free agent look. Before I get if I'm throwing to the lane.
I believe you. Well, Cole Payton steps in as the starting quarterback. Payton brings explosive athleticism with 1,100 yards, career yards, rushing, 18 touchdowns. You mentioned Bryce Lance, who was just unbelievable. Program record 17 receiving touchdowns last year. He was the headliner for NDSU. He returns. Barika Keepnew leads the backfield, had 725 yards last year. The offensive line's in transition. You talked about that with SDSU. They do keep Griffin Impey, Trent Fraley, and Jack Lewiski. Those are all like Fargo names. You know what I'm saying? You got Jack, Griffin, and Trent there in the offensive line. They're back. They've had some playing experience. Defensively, they bring back just 3 of their top 11 tacklers from a season ago, maintaining continuity with 8 players logging 300-plus snaps per season. So they've got some good experience. Key transfers of Anton Booth from James Madison, cornerback Jalen Peoples from Texas Tech, and linebacker Alex Elliott from Minnesota add depth and experience. The Bisons voted number 1 in the preseason poll, and I think everyone can agree that likely there's not someone that's going to compete against this NDSU team to knock them off if what we see now is what we see, and it holds true. This is a reloaded team that's got a lot of talent, and they're going to put up a lot of points. They're not going to give up a lot of points, and that's just tough to beat.
Listen, when it gets to be, I don't know, 4th and 1 or anything in 1, and they break the huddle, them offensive linemen, they're going to walk up to the line of scrimmage, and that center's going to holler out. He's going to tell him, he says, I'm Daryl. This is my brother Daryl. This is my other brother Daryl. They're going to come off the ball, and they're going to maul some folks. So I'm excited to see, and I'm excited to see somebody challenge them.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to be interesting as the year starts. So let's go ahead and look at what our prediction. I got a chance to put this together as for my prediction. And, Coach, you can disagree with it. I'm going to read it out. I've got NDSU finishing 1st, South Dakota State finishing 2nd, Illinois State finishing 3rd, South Dakota finishing 4th, Youngstown State 5th, Sycamores 6th, North Dakota finishing 7th, SEMO, Southern Illinois.
I disagree with that one.
Yeah, still in the Southern Illinois, UNI, and Murray State as my prediction there, Coach. And, I think the top 2 are so far ahead. The rest is, I think, almost irrelevant.
Yeah. The MVC, the conference used to be in thirds. You used to have the top 2, you had the middle 3, and then you had and the bottom five couldn't compete with the middle three. The middle three couldn't compete with the top two. At least now, 5 through the rest of the conference is about even.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, Murray State's a little bit behind, so I don't want to say that. If I was going to argue one of your picks, it would be South Dakota and Illinois State. I don't think Illinois State is there, but to defend kind of what you got, Illinois State's got more coming back, and they've got more proven things coming back.
I literally think, Coach, the middle four are so interchangeable.
Yeah.
An injury here, a funny hop, of the football there. You never know. You never know.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I'll be interested to see how the bottom four trickles out because again, I think Murray State is going to I would probably put Southern Illinois at the very end.
Okay.
Yeah. If it's me, I think you and I and Murray State have moved in front of SIU. I think it's going to be a tough season in Carbondale. And again, I think you're right on target with the top two. It's going to be a fun year, and I want to see how it comes out.
Yeah, SEMO not in the MVFC. That was Brandon's fault. Oh, listen, it is one thing we're going to add here to the FCS Checkdown. And Coach, you get a chance to watch this when you watch it on YouTube. I'm adding a ticker below.
Okay.
And here we go, because it is almost football season. Here it is, the ticker on the screen. It's got our week 0 schedule. It's got our top 25. And it's got welcome to the FCS. That will roll for the broadcast, and we'll update that each week, trying to add some new stuff here to the FCS Checkdown and bring you some SEMO apparently in the MVFC is just scratch that stupid thing. When you're sitting here making these graphics and you're like, this looks good, I'm gonna move this over here, and you're doing all these conferences and you forget to click one button and SEMO gets stuck in there. Anyway,
hey, they're gonna be mad you picked them 7th too.
I know, isn't that right? In the MVFC, you can't even. Yeah. Anyway, hey, Coach, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time tonight. I know that you got family stuff going on yourself, and but football season's here, so we got to amp this thing up a little bit.
The pleasure's all mine. It's another exciting season. It's another great season for the FCS. I thought last year was one of the better FCS seasons, and this one looks right on top to peek it out there. I'm really looking forward to week 1.
Well, you know what I'm looking forward to is the football on the field and not all this prediction stuff and looking at this, and because it really never ever know. But maybe we can also stop talking about this governance stuff and this and that. I mean, it will always come into when you see. And I heard Sam Herder talk about it on a podcast with Montana. You will start seeing conferences saying we're sticking with 63 scholarships. And then another conference go, no, we're unlimited scholarships, partial scholarships, whatever the case may be. And what kind of competitive advantage that may give. Because let's be honest, we know the Midwest and the Montanas and Dakotas, they are running away with the FCS, and it's going to be better for the FCS when a team from the South, maybe a team from the Patriot League, from the CAA, from wherever, OVC, wherever, starts competing against some of these Dakota teams, and it might take that scholarship level being imbalanced to do that, Coach. And anyway, those are the kind of things that you may see an impact on. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah. I want to see what the FCS teams, what they do. I want to see how they attack the NIL. I want to see how they attack. I know we talked to Coach Plow last year. I thought his response was fantastic. And I think he does it the right way. And think he gets recognized for it because there's a guy on the FCS Reddit that ranked the coaches, and Coach Plow's one of the top 5 in the country. And another thing that you'll find about that, when you look up and down the FCS roster, I think you've got some dynamite coaches.
Yeah.
That are in the FCS right now. So what I'm hoping happens is it stops becoming what you consider. I mean, I guess it's always going to be kind of a stair-step type thing, but you get some stability back with the programs, back with the teams, and the competition level should do what you said. It should overtake the things that are outside outside the lines.
Yeah. Absolutely, Coach. All right. So listen, again, this is a video medium now. We are available on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe. Our goal is to get 500 subscribers to the show, and build this thing. And there's not enough FCS content out there, in my opinion, that's quality. So that's what we're trying to do. And we're not trying to be amateur hour. We put in a lot of time and effort into this thing. And we hate that Brandon couldn't be here tonight, because I know he's got an amazing and analytical mind about the FCS. But, things happen, life happens, but we are here for you because we love the FCS and we love that talking FCS football. We hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe, and comment. Also, check us out on Spotify if you like that platform as well. You can hit the review button, 5-star review would be wonderful. A little comment and let us know what you like, what you don't like. All right, that's the way it is. That's a wrap for the FCS Checkdown as we've previewed the MVFC and SEMO somehow. All right, Coach. It's been fun, as always. Thanks so much for your time. We'll see you next week. This is the FCS Checkdown. Let's go!